My guest today is one of the most well-known guitar icons of all time. He has a new album that just came out called Shockwave Supernova. I'd like to welcome the incredible, legendary Joe Satriani.
Oh, thank you. I hope you're having a good morning.
I am. I have to say, listen, I'll get it all right off the bat. I'm a huge fan, and just to have you calling me and saying this is Joe Satriani, it's a real treat. So
cool.
I appreciate that, man. It's really cool. I'll jump right in because I've been listening to the new record and it's fantastic. Again, just stellar from beginning to end. But I want to start off with, just because it just happened, was the G4 experience, right?
Yeah. Boy, it seems like a distant memory already, but that's only because so much has been happening in the last few weeks. But yeah, I guess coming on about a month ago, we did the second annual G4 experience. We definitely bumped it up quite a bit. It was, I think, incredibly exciting for all the campers that came, and I got a special thrill out of it because, once again, there were, the teachers invited that opened my eyes to a lot of things, and I got to sort of be a fan, stand on the side of the stage, even jump on stage and play with Guthrie and Tosin and Mike Neely again, and they're just incredible, and they're so different. I'm never going to play an 8-string guitar like Tosin,
right?
And I don't possess the control of Guthrie either, and I've been a big fan of Guthrie's for many years, since the Erotic Cakes record. So it's just really great to be able to hang out with them, to watch them play, to teach, to jam with them. And once again, Cambria proved to be a beautiful host to 200 guitar players,
Wow. I mean, do you find that most of the campers that come are already more advanced, or are they just kind of fans that are starting out and maybe not at that level? Or what kind of guitars come to that thing?
It was pretty mixed this time. I'm thinking about the last time we did it, and it seemed pretty much the same. But I seem to think that because of the diversity of the teachers that we had, it attracted an even more eclectic, mixed group of musicians, young kids, older adults, professionals, as well as people who were coming simply, like with their families to enjoy the whole week in Cambria. And it was centered around, let's say that father and daughter with their guitars taking lessons every day and visiting the clinics and jamming. So, I saw, once again, young to old and people from around the world that had come. There were a few people who were repeats as well, that came back again because they knew it was going to be so different because of, Mike Keneally and myself mixing up with a bunch of new guys, not only Tosin and Guthrie and the two bands, Animals as leaders, as well as the Aristocrats, but I think this time around, I think Mike Keneally being able to put on the Beer for Dolphins show was a really cool thing. Rather than putting a sort of piecing a band together, Joe Travers actually came up, and of course Brian Bella, longtime Beer for Dolphins band member, putting on the show like that was great. And then of course we had Andy Aladort was with us. Doug Doppler and Bruce Boulay were back. Stig Matheson to round out the whole teaching staff. It was pretty amazing. So I don't know. I mean, I keep thinking in bigger terms because when you hang out with that many guitar players, and I should say not only that, but Marco was giving clinics and Stu Ham was giving clinics. I mean, it was a lot.
That's
going
amazing.
on.
Yeah, the names are unbelievable. I mean, it's the top of the top. It's very cool.
Yeah. The stuff that Marco and Matt Garsick did that's pretty out there. I don't think you could find that anywhere else. And so it was broader than like just a bunch of guitar players,
Right.
It was a full-on heavy musical thing. Plus, there were beginner lessons being given during the day. there were lots of jams with all the students getting together in big and small groups. And our promoter, Danny Heaps, makes sure at the Cambria Lodge that there are lots of places for people to break off and do their own little jams, as well as playing with the pro teachers that had the event. So it was a big success, and we're already booking the next one. So we're very happy.
Let me ask you this: there's all these newer bands that are doing a lot of instrumental stuff, like Animals as Leaders and Scale the Summit and Aristocrats are hitting it big now. Is that cool for you to see again? Because sort of the instrumental thing, you were almost carrying that torch by yourself for a while there, and now a lot of these bands are they're selling a lot of records and selling out venues. Is that really neat for you to see that come back?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I absolutely love it. I've always found instrumental music to have a special power to it. It's very cathartic. The absence of the lyrics really gives a listener an extra freedom to assign to that piece of music any story that is relevant to their life. So if you can imagine if Moonlight Sonata had lyrics.
Right.
Who knows what the Beethoven would have been thinking about. But it's kind of cool that he didn't give us any lyrics, and people could use it any way they want. And I think back to a song that was released just a few years after I was born, a song called Sleepwalk by Santu and Johnny.
Sure.
And that played like on the radio as I was a little kid, just sort of becoming aware of the world. I always heard it as an instrumental. And when I covered it a few records back, it was the first time I was aware that lyrics had actually been written, and they tried to re-release it as a vocal tune. But of course, people had already taken the instrumental to heart. So I am so excited that there are more instrumentalists out there that are doing different things. I think that in the past, anytime you get a little success, everybody comes out with their version of what you're doing, and that's no fun.
Right.
So, when Animals as Leaders joined us for the Cliff Culturary benefit about a month ago in L.A., it was so cool to watch them from the side of the stage, and Matt, Javier, and Tosin just really getting into a groove and a vibe, playing that instrumental stuff on stage. It really touched me, and I was totally sold, because I had never seen them live before, only seen clips.
Yeah. And
listened to the records, and I always thought, well, what's it going to be like when I'm standing close to them? Am I going to feel something? And I definitely did. It was definitely a cathartic experience listening to the instrumentals and feeling their intensity, as a unit. So I'm very happy to be joined by lots of new artists and new bands.
Yeah, they're great, and I was able to catch them live opening for Between the Buried and Me a few weeks back here too, and they're just amazing, and so is the other band. Well, let's talk about the new album, Shockwave Supernova, which came out last week on the 24th, featuring your recent touring band, or your current touring band, Brian Beller, Marco, and Mike. I saw you guys on tour with the Unstoppable Momentum, same band, I guess about a year or so ago, and it was just an amazing show, super tight band. Did you guys sort of feel that the unit really working well and decided, okay, let's try and make a record? Is that how it came about?
Absolutely. We had so many great shows, and it's very busy schedule, because I was still doing outside projects, and the Aristocrats and Mike Keneally were all touring and making records in between all of our 8-week, 9-week runs is typically how long we go out. So we were all incredibly busy. Everyone was working on 1 or 2 or 3 other projects, and that amount of energy really just showed up in a very fun way every night on stage. I'd always told them, look, we have fans, and we have this rather large catalog now. At the time, 14 albums of music. but since I tour a lot, let's just, let's be a new band for this material. And as you know, all the guys in the band are incredibly creative. They can, think on their feet like crazy, and they play in a very, I don't know, maybe I use the word playful way. They're so confident in their abilities, and they love music so much that everything comes out fun. So we just had fun every night, and I thought, I got to make sure that I get this on record. And towards the last couple of weeks of the tour, I started to really think I wanted to make a larger record rather than just 10 songs and a bonus track. I was thinking I wanted to do something pretty big in terms of scale, and I thought, I'd love to be able to get these guys to come to play and maybe work in some material that I still was working on from the last record. And that's what really determined how I was going to pull the whole thing together, because I had at the time, I think, 5 songs that had Vinnie Colaiuta on drums and Chris Chaney on bass and Mike Keneally on keys, and then I had written maybe 20 more songs specifically for Mark O'Brien and Mike. And so I had to I started thinking, like, how am I going to blend these guys together? I thought that would be so exciting to hear different rhythm sections on the record. And it wasn't until the last show and just a funny little moment playing with my teeth that this sort of popped into my head that the album could be pulled together with a concept about an alter ego that's inside of me fighting for dominance, and that this purpose, this sort of funny concept album, would really be serviced well by having a host of characters play rather than just one band, sort of recreating the live thing. Because I thought, you get filmed every night on stage and it gets posted everywhere. And we'd also done the first show of the tour. We were filmed in, I think it was Bulgaria or something like that. And then at the beginning of the last run, we did a show front and center for PBS, and that was a funny story in its own. But I thought, the live thing has already been done with all this material, so I don't want to repeat it. I don't want to just say, finally, here's the band in the studio. I thought it's got to be something bigger than that, and so I decided to, leap of faith to try to come up with a concept album, and it turned out great because those guys, like I said before, I used the word playful. You can show up at 11 in the morning and say, "Hey, I've got a song," and it's about a guy who's not real, and he thinks he's remembering that he's had metaphysical breakdowns in the past when he was doing a lot of drugs and alcohol and partying, and so we have to play a song that represents his struggle about whether or not there is life after death. You know what I mean? And they'd all just laugh and, oh, that's funny, yeah, let's do it, let's just try it 8 different ways, and so that's what that's really what I think the super strength, the unknown strength of that unit is because everybody knows they can play like crazy. I mean, they're just technical wizards. But what I know is that Brian, Marco, and Mike are some of the funniest, most creative people to hang out with, and that's what I wanted to tap into.
You hear the fun and joy on the album, I think, and a lot of the songs. It's a lot of it's really upbeat. And the production is amazing. Was there anything different that you guys did this time around recording-wise?
Absolutely. I went into this and invited John Cuniberti in specifically because I wanted the audience to experience the recordings the way we did in the studio. And it's no secret, that the steps of bringing music to people often requires a kind of degradation with good intentions. Music sounds have to be somewhat fixed and contained in order to fit certain contexts. Radio is one context, television is another. your laptop or your earbuds, the elevator, the car,
Yeah.
Mono, stereo, 4-to-1, 7-to-1, whatever else is happening. And it drives musicians crazy, and it drives the budget crazy. And very often, when I look back on the career that I've had and having to master records, I've seen that we have had to react to whatever was happening, whatever society thought was cool, in order to get your music introduced to the biggest audience possible. So that might mean that you take a beautiful sounding recording, and when you go to mastering, you say, well, make this thing really loud. Make it as loud as that person's record that is #1, or that just sold 40 million copies, like the way things used to sell in the old days. And then, of course, you get swept up, I think, in the moment. And, this became apparent to me when we were doing the Chrome Dome, which was my entire catalog remastered by John Cuniberti, and the two of us took the idea that, we should remove the veil of mastering anxiety from the catalog and get the audience to hear the way it sounded to us. The day we looked at each other in the studio and said, this is the mix, we're done, which means a full, super dynamic sounding recording that you can turn up really loud and it never hurts, and that always has depth to it, because it is in fact dynamic. It's not like music coming out of a video game console where there's maybe zero dynamic range, and most pop records have maybe 2 decibel dynamic range. Surfing with the Alien had like 15, I think, or 20 dBs of dynamic range. That's insane. But that's actually the way music should be enjoyed, So we wanted that to happen again, and we went to special lengths to make sure that we could create a very open, dynamic sounding record, and this really helped us in terms of the fact that the record was long. It's 15 songs, and I was nervous, that the record would overstay its welcome. And that was another reason to make it very dynamic and, somewhat salubrious to listen to. You know what I mean? It's like music shouldn't kill you. It shouldn't bother you.
Right.
There's no reason why the recorded, distorted screaming guitar can't sound really great. So that's what we really focused on. And it's a difficult thing to do, and I think the record shines because of John Cuniberti's talent as an engineer, as a mix engineer, as well as a mastering engineer, because he did the whole thing at my insistence.
And by the way, I have the Chrome Dome as well, and it's one of the coolest packaging of things ever created, if anybody doesn't have it. Just so brilliant. I was wondering, when you're writing, you're so prolific and you write so many songs, how often does it occur where you do write during the process of writing for a record where there's a handful of songs or so that do have a lyric, or that you did write lyrics for, or you put aside for maybe one day you might work with a singer? Does that happen to you when you write?
Quite a bit. I've been part of Chicken Foot since 2008, and right. So I do a lot of what I call free association writing, where I'll sit down and I'll maybe start within an hour, 4 or 5 songs, and I see where they're going. I imagine Sam, saying, I'm not singing that, or I want to sing something on that, that reminds me of some story and I want to tell it. And so I just kind of write it all down, record it, make notes, make demos. I don't kind of like put my foot down right at the beginning, and say, this is a Chicken Foot song, or this is a song I'm going to write for somebody else. I kind of wait and see where it goes. And sometimes those experiments, I guess, change course in their own natural way. A good example would be, there's a song on the new record called Crazy Joey, and I remember one afternoon when I was writing that, my idea was to write a song for Chad in in an idea for a different kind of a Chickenfoot record. And so I was sitting down with a bass, and I thought, okay, I'm going to write a song that's purely about showcasing how crazy Chad Smith is as a person and as an amazing drummer. And so I was thinking about the slow tempo and just these three simple chords. And I realized, after about a half hour of mapping this thing out, I'm started to think, I bet Sam will never sing over this. For one reason or another, I had the feeling like he'd listen to it and go, I don't hear anything, for me to do, And then I thought, well, maybe I've written this with the wrong thing in mind. Maybe it's the title, I think, was Crazy Drummer. I think that's what I wrote down first. And I thought, maybe it's not about Chad at all. Maybe I'm writing a song about a version of me, And I think that popped into my head because, Sam's always leaning on me for, coming up with the songs and being the organized one. And they're allowed to kind of just fly in and be crazy, record a couple of takes and split, and then I'm left at the studio to pull things together, right? And so I think I was thinking to myself, I'm crazy too, and you never know what you're going to get when I'm, walking down the street to Sam's studio. It was just one of those funny reactionary daydreams while I'm working on this song called Crazy Drummer. So then I just flipped it. I said, no, this is going to be called Crazy Joey, and the drums are not going to be crazy. In fact, they're going to hold down the fort while the guitar plays in three different ways. First in a major scale, very simple, childlike, and then it's going to do these incredibly precise ensemble sort of arpeggios along with the keyboard, and then it's going to sort of descend into a blues line, and and so on and so forth. But then I wound up combining the two, and when I showed the song to Vinnie Colaiuta, I told him the story that it was originally called Crazy Drummer, and of course then that's why he started the song the way he did with that just insane intro drum fill. Right. Great just moment of Vinnie Colaiuta laying down a Vinnie groove. It's just insane the way he plays. So, but there's a good example of where I start writing for one band and the song takes a turn and winds up in the other band's hand.
Have you ever had the idea to take some of those songs with the lyrics and do one of those albums that some guitarists have done before, where they get like 10 different singers and do that kind of thing?
I have a big aversion to that for two reasons. Number one, everyone's done it already.
Yeah.
And I think Carlos Santana really did it. I mean, that first record, Supernatural,
right,
that was the thing. He just had the right singers, the right songs, and it sold a cajillion copies. And so it was just like, okay, that's been done, And then Slash's record, I forget which one that was called, the title of it, but he had also the same kind of thing. And I was just like, these guys are great. I'm not going to step on their, home plate, try to cover what they've done before. But the other thing that really bothered me about that whole approach was that when you go to bring the record out to the fans, you can't possibly bring out 10 vocalists.
Right.
And if you're even lucky to get like a famous, vocalist, that person's not going to come out with you. So then what's the whole point? Just the whole thing started to seem like you were doing it only to sell records, like only to appease to the fame machine. And I learned very early on in my career that is a really unfulfilling road to go down. I do believe you have to truly love what you're doing to withstand the insanity that is the entertainment industry. And so I just thought, I'm not going to do that. I'm just not. It's like I want to play the music that I love, and if people love it, when I go out on tour, I can stand there as me and connect with the audience. I don't have to say, hey, look, it's Taylor Swift, and she's playing the rhythm part, or whatever, You know what I mean? It's just about the music and how it inspires the fans and how they use the music in their life. And I thought, this is big. I never thought it was less than having a vocalist. And I guess maybe that's thematically that's where myself and my team differ perhaps from conventional thought.
Yeah. Well,
You know?
look, no one writes the kind of music you do and presents it in this way. So I'm sure no one would want you to change a thing. But, this is album number 15. And I was looking back, and you've really not taken more than maybe 3 years between records. Almost every 2 years you put out a new album and then tour it. How do you still stay so active and so on top of your game and always writing? I mean, you never wanted to take like a few year break and just chill for a little bit?
Oh, that would drive me insane. No, I mean, I love playing music. I'm driven to write music, and I love playing on stage. So it's not something I want to get away from ever. Well, I mean, my fingers get tired now and then, and I get tired of hotel rooms and stuff like that. But it's sort of like a triumvirate kind of a thing. I mean, there's a period where I'm at home, people leave me alone, I get to experience creating music without any outside interference, and I love that. And then stage 2 is bringing musicians in and making the thing palpable for the rest of the world, making the recordings, And then stage 3 is hitting the stage, and I love all 3 moments. I don't want to give up one of them, not quite yet. I kind of thrive on that cycle, and I love it. And it's really, when you think about it, it's not a whole lot of albums. I think I'm only one more than Marco Minimum. I think he's got 14 solo records. So it's, I feel like I'm in good company. People who like to be prolific. It's good to be prolific, I think.
Yeah. I just got one more question. We've been doing something fun with people that we interview and sort of catching them on the spot, where I try to ask, what's the song that changed your life? And if I can throw that on you and see if you can come up with something.
I think there were 2 that were very important. The first would be when I was a very little kid. I'm guessing 5 years old or something like that, 6, I don't know. I was with my family vacationing up in Vermont, small little town, and my older sisters were going to like a local dance, for the teenagers or something. And we were dropping them off, and my parents let me walk in the door of this hall where they were having the dance. And I remember I heard what turned out to be this band doing Satisfaction by the Rolling Stones. And it literally changed my life. I swear the DNA in my body suddenly, turned around and upside down and rearranged itself in that one moment. I just never forgot about that. And
wow.
that turned me into a drummer eventually. So at age 9, for a good 3 years there, I was a drummer and taking lessons and really wanted to be a drummer. But right around the time I was sort of easing up on that, I heard a Hendrix song coming through the radio one day, and it was The Wind Cries Mary, and that was another moment where I really felt my brain and my body somehow change. It was a total, unexplainable cathartic moment for a little kid to go through. I was a little bit older, I must have been, 11 or something like that, but I just remember thinking, oh, this is something that I've been waiting for my whole life. So those 2 artist bands and hearing, Satisfaction and Wind Cries Mary really were game changers for me.
That's very cool. Listen, again, it's a pleasure. New album is out, Shockwave Supernova, out now, iTunes, Amazon, everywhere. And Joe, I can't believe I'm speaking with you, really. It's an honor, and thank you so much.
Thank you. It was lots of fun to talk to you. Thanks.
All right, buddy. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'd like to thank Joe for the interview. For upcoming news and interviews, please check theprogreport.com, follow us on Facebook, @The Prog Report on Twitter, and download the podcast on iTunes. Thanks.